Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of Lesbian Talk, episode 60.
We're old. Okay, we're not old, but you know what I mean.
Almost retirement age.
We're nearly old, theoretically speaking.
We have a theme music.
We do have a theme music. And we also today have some special announcements. Yay, announcements or whatever. But yeah, so we're actually going to be switching up the format of the show a little bit. We're going to be trying something different. This might be the way things are for the rest of the life, and they might not. We might change them back. We might change something different. But the show's going to be changing a little bit. We're going to be dropping down to a 45-minute show, just for ease of several different things. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is Giovanni's trivia fact. I was thinking, should it go away? Should it become once every so often? But I decided to change that up a little bit. Now, Giovanni's trivia fact has now become Giovanni's trivia question, and that's going to happen at the end of the show. So pretty much Giovanni will come and he will ask a trivia question, and after the episode goes up, the first person to tweet me the answer and not use Google, and I know obviously I can't check, but, use the honor system here, they will get a shout-out next week when we do the next question. Giovanni will be like, hey, you got it right. You're the best mammal this week, or, something lobstery like that.
Yeah, Giovanni was irritated at basically performing for your amusement.
Yeah, he was going to call the ACLU, American Civil Lobsters Association.
Yeah, that's a much better joke.
But we're also going to have to get rid of the music break, and that's more of a practicality because I'm having significant issues with YouTube, even when, all of our artists have given us permission to use their music. Third parties come in and say, actually, we're claiming copyright on that person's music, so there you go. And we say, but you don't have copyright to it. The artist does. And the artist said we could use it. Well, we're claiming it anyway.
Yeah, we had this whole huge multi-month back and forth involved with one of the producers who were not signed, yet these guys were claiming to own the music, and we eventually had the band yelling at these people saying, stop claiming our fucking stuff. And that's why it's not really been on YouTube.
Yeah, so once we get rid of the music break, that will happen, and we might still play music from new people from time to time. It's just, it's a lot more practical this way. So, yeah, the story for the store will be staying. We're also going to get rid of dictionary time, because usually it doesn't really give us any more progressive of a thing to talk about than we would have come up with ourselves. And sometimes we're kind of reaching. Like last week when it was the abbreviation for headquarters, and we're like, well, we've certainly been in organizations before that have headquarters. Huh. So anyway, on to Doctor Who.
Yeah. Plus the dictionary was one of those things that's much more amusing when we're in person.
Yeah, like if we're together. So, it still might come back at some point in time, just not for the foreseeable 3 months.
And we are going to try and get an interview at some point. We might try to do the interviews whenever we're together in the same time zone.
Yeah, actually we have a whole bunch of really awesome people that we have interviews lined up with when we're all in the same time zone. So I'm actually kind of really excited about that.
Yeah, lined up / semi-lined up / we want to get it done.
/ people who said, can I be on your show? Alright, sure, that sounds good.
Yeah, we got my cat wants to be on the show.
Which one?
Both of them. I've decided they're one person.
See, they should be on the show making noise, but you refuse to enforce this.
Yes, I refuse to torture my cats so they make noise. Plus, they're not in the room right now.
Now you know how I feel. Back when I lived in Maryland, you were like, oh, make Kippers make a noise. I can't. He's sleeping now.
Yeah, but Kippers would talk if you talked to him.
Yeah, that's true, but he would never do it when I had the mic on for some reason.
He's like, fucking mic.
He was a crotchety old man cat. He was.
But anyway, that's the new format. This is Lesbian Talk.
Deal with it. No, I'm just kidding.
Lesbian Talk 2.0.
Ooh, we're all like spiffy. Lesbian. We're new and improved. Now we're gluten-free. So do you know, I was actually, it's not a story for the store, but it kind of is. So I was straightening the store last night because I was closing.
How ironic.
I know, right? Haha, because I'm gay. Get it?
And the show is like Queen of Lesbians, according to someone.
Yes. We had to get approval from all of the lesbians for the show. Mm-hmm. But so I was straightening up the teen section. And teen has a small nonfiction section. there's like biographies and all sorts of other stuff. We have a new book that was phased out because it's a new arrival called Teen Paleo. Speaking of like being, our podcast being gluten free.
Yeah, paleo. Is that about the diet, or is it kids who are interested in cavemen?
Well, no, it's this whole idea that everything is wrong because of modern life. So if you eat like cavemen did, you will do well, like not cooking your meat and all sorts of other really weird stuff.
Well, that's stupid.
Well, some people are really into it. It's like surpassing gluten-free is the next big fad. So we have so many like moms come in and get like paleo for kids and all that other kind of stuff, and I'm like,
it's still very.
I think
stupid.
That sounds like some kind of trick, but
it's still very stupid. So when you're talking about teen non-fiction, I was thinking maybe it would be like Neil Gaiman's biography of Duran Duran.
No, we have a small bio section. We have teen inspiration, which is like, the 7 habits of highly effective teens. And I think there's like a few of like Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul, and there's like one religious devotional, and then a whole bunch of makeup books, and what's happening to my body for both girls and boys. I mean, it sells, so.
Does it?
It does. But anyway, we have an actual.
What does it sell?
Well, the stuff that we have in is what's called modeled, which means that we should always have a certain quantity. Like, we'll always have, for example, 2 copies of A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, which means that if we sell one of those copies, then the distribution will automatically send us one to replace it. Modeled means a book is popular enough that distribution knows we sell it regularly and we should have it in stock regularly. Books that don't sell do not get modeled. So since teen nonfiction is such a small section, it's really only new releases and stuff that's modeled. So that's how I know some of it sells. You were just being contrary, weren't you? And you were shocked when I had an actual answer, aren't you?
I was never being contrary.
You are
I was
always being contrary.
Deeply fascinated by the internal workings of...
Fascinated? No way, you big liar.
I'm very big. The Nameless Bookshop. Plus, I have yellow hair. Your argument is invalid.
I have yellow hair, too. Actually, I don't, not yet.
You will later on.
Yeah. But anyway, so let's talk about an actual topic that's actually topical, because it's actually kind of related to all the stuff that we do here and all the stuff that our, the reviewing community does. And so if you weren't paying attention to the news the past week, 2 12-year-old girls, I think it's a town called like Waukesha, I think is the name of the town. They did
Waukesha sounds like a terrible teen girl name.
I think it's American Indian.
Huh.
A lot of the hard to pronounce American place names are. Cause they were like, oh, we'll just take the name that it already has because of all the Indian folks living here. But so these 2 girls, and one was kind of like the ringleader, who convinced her other friend to get in on this, nearly stabbed a friend of theirs to death because they believed that Slenderman wanted them to do it. And if you're not familiar with Slenderman, you're either 3 or you're 73, and you've never been on the internet. And Slenderman is kind of like... People have called Slenderman the first crowdsourced urban legend, and I think that's fair enough to say. Yeah,
he looks like one of the gentlemen from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, and Slenderman was created in the Something Awful forums, and about, I think, a day or 2 before the Marvel Hornet series started. So there actually is a creator of Slenderman, although if that's this guy's real name, I don't know. And I thought about this, because obviously, I mean, this is horrific. And then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, so someone, created a character, and that people have been building on, online, like fandoms do. And the news media is going out of their way to say what you need to know about Slenderman, as if it's like a gateway drug to meth or something like that.
That's because it's the media dealing with something that they don't understand, because media is generally made up of people who are people with editorial control are in their 40s and above. So it's going to be at least another generation before people who know what the fuck Slenderman is or internet stuff in general are in any kind of power. So we're going to hear these scare stories till then. It's no different than the people who are blaming Doom for Columbine or other things.
But it's like you can't blame a fictional character for something like that. Like, you can't say that, oh, well, because Friday the 13th exists, someone killed someone else.
Well, people have tried to make that sort of claim. And at the same time, completely ignoring the people who killed people because God told them to.
Yeah, pretty much. But I thought about this, and I mean, reading the article, it's very evident that one or both of the girls are profoundly mentally ill. The ringleader girl, I mean, she even said when she was being interrogated by the police, that they said, well, did you feel bad about that? She said, no. I guess that's bad, isn't it? Aren't I supposed to feel bad? And they were like, well, like she has no remorse, and she obviously knows it's wrong to have no remorse. From the quotes in the article, and I read a few articles on this, it doesn't, I mean, they can't use diminished capacity because these girls obviously knew what they were doing is wrong. So you can't argue, that they were so young that they had diminished capacity because they didn't. They knew that it was wrong to kill someone. But at the same time, I mean, if you're significantly mentally ill to the point of delusion, because they were adding parts of the Slenderman mythos, they said, oh yeah, well, he has a mansion in the woods near our town and all this other stuff, and he's going to kill my family. I'd call that pretty delusional, but if you're that delusional, what's to stop you from reading a brony fanfic, for God's sakes? And saying, oh, well, Twilight Sparkle told me to kill.
I think the bronies might argue that the point of that show is that friendship, not mass murder, is magic.
Every single brony amongst our audience is already saying Twilight Sparkle would never say that.
Yeah, but the point is, she's crazy. They're either profoundly mentally ill, or they're trying to use this as some sort of an excuse. There's no either or. There is no, I can't see a third option.
And it's just so interesting because, I mean, now, like on The Guardian, there was an article about Slenderman. And it's...
And even if it... Okay. We have cases of people who actually were, meant through mental illness or supreme idiocy or just being psychotic bastards. They believed they were being told to kill or cause deaths by something else, which, a completely innocent something else. The famous case is the son of Sam who believed that the devil, via the barking of his neighbor's dog, was ordering him to kill. But then you've also got, like, Charles Manson believed the Beatles were telling him to start a race war via their song Helter Skelter, and I bet he was kicking himself when he found out what a Helter Skelter actually is.
It's like a playground, like a merry-go-round, right?
No, nearly. It's like a 1.5 story, spiral slide for children.
Oh, that sounds fun.
It's like a Victorian sort of little thing to ride.
Come ride the race war.
So you just imagine, like, Charles Manson, he's like, it means what? Oh, fuck.
Yes, but he also was significantly delusional. So at that point, I doubt that he cared. Yeah, isn't it he comes up for parole every so often, and they just go through the motions of doing the parole hearing because he's never going to be paroled? And
he just turns it into like a theatrical piece where he's yelling and stuff at them. Actually, one of the guys I follow on Twitter and on the internet, when he was a child, he grew up in this like fundamentalist Christian and fundamentalist. It was either evangelical Christian or Mormon, I'm not entirely sure, but in the desert they had their own little compound thing, and it wasn't far from the Manson family, so he actually, when he was a small child, ran into several of the Manson family.
Hey guys, what you doing?
And he explained that they told him that Charles Manson, they had seen Charles Manson like fly and do all these sorts of miraculous things, which actually is why they thought he was Jesus. And, of course, the guy himself, who I'm talking about, is called Aaron Rand. He does not believe in any kind of deity at all.
That'd be really great if he was like, that's cool. Would you like a copy of the Book of Mormon?
He possibly tried that at some point.
But Charles Manson write the show. All right, continue.
He uses this as an example of these people truly believe that Charles Manson could perform miracles. And people apparently, true believers in Jim Jones apparently thought the same thing about him, so...
Well, I mean, if you're, like, have enough evidence forced at you at an impressionable age, you can believe anything. I mean, okay, so suppose a friend of yours who lived down the block was like, hey, do you know what? And you're like, what? I could be killed and I'll rise from the dead in, like, 3 days. And you're like, that's bullshit, you liar. Let's see you do it. I can't right now. I hear my mom calling me. And yet you'll go to, not you per se, but then yet the same child will go to church and, Jesus rose after 3 days. Well, that's cool. That seems reasonable enough.
Yeah, well, with him, he used it as a way to discuss, them believing it. They saw stuff that they interpreted as that. I
Yes, but didn't they also take an incredible amount of LSD? Or am I thinking of a different cult?
Yeah, they took a lot of acid, apart from everything else. They weren't just in a cult, it was the 60s.
Oh.
And
Hope everyone was dropping acid, it's all right.
Allegedly, Charles Manson had anal sex with everyone in the group as a way of dominance, things like that.
Oh, dear.
Yep.
That probably hurt. I mean, like, above and beyond everything else that they did.
But yeah, regardless of whether... okay, even if these girls were, insane enough to think that Slenderman wasn't for telling them to kill, it's not the fictional character's fault that they killed them.
It's the fact that they are mentally ill and possibly delusional.
Yeah, a fictional character can't make you insane. As much as I would love to try.
Quite honestly, I mean, they're being tried as adults. And I don't know if their state is a death penalty state, but I think they're too young to qualify anyway. But what's probably going to happen is their family's lawyers or their publicly assigned defense lawyers will get them to tell them to plead out, and they'll probably spend a significant amount of time in an inpatient psychiatric penal institution. And I hope that they do get the help that they need. I don't know. See, I don't want to say, well, maybe it's someday they can be released 20 years from now. It's so hard to say. Like, didn't that author Anne Perry, she and her friend, they killed someone, didn't they?
Yeah, Juliet Hume and I forget their names. Anne Perry isn't her original name.
Yeah, it's her pen name.
Yeah, she was played by Kate Winslet in Heaven the Creatures. I was about to point this out. The case does sound like the Juliet Hume case from New Zealand, which Heaven the Creatures is based on. You get these two girls who are insane and really, really, really imaginative, and they end up killing someone. Well, in this one they didn't kill, but they tried.
And then Anne Perry eventually became released and became a, I don't want to say, like, fantastic, because I think her books are okay. She became a very prolific mystery writer.
And she converted to, I believe, Mormonism, and the other one, she moved to Scotland, I believe, and she became a Catholic.
This whole thing always comes back to Mormonism, this whole conversation.
Well, the other one became a Catholic. One became a Catholic, one became a Mormon, and they both live in the UK now, which is like, aren't you two supposed to keep away from each other? What if you run into each other at, like, Waterloo Station, like we ran into my friend Christina?
I'm sure that's exactly what... How did they... Oh, they were Australian, were they not?
New Zealand.
Okay. So to be like, wait a second, how were they allowed to immigrate? And I was like, oh, New Zealand is really
well, one of them, Anne Parry, she was English, but her family moved to New Zealand and then moved back. And the reason that they were decided to hatch their murder plan was because they didn't want to be split apart. And then the other one apparently moved from New Zealand to the UK separately.
Oh.
I believe they spent about 5 years in jail, but the condition of their release was that they are not allowed to have any contact with each other.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, I don't know. And I've seen a lot of people say on different social media, well, yeah, when I was 12, I believed that Lestat would come in the night and kiss me. Or, I had a friend who really did believe that she was going to have a relationship with one of the members of NSYNC. And at that age, at 12, I don't know, you could be mature for 12. See, I was 12 in 92. So I was I think I was either in 5th or 6th grade. So I was just in middle school. So
these two girls, they're both 12?
Yeah. They're in the same grade at school.
I don't think they should be tried as adults.
Well, that's what the prosecutor wants. And like I said, I think that if they have good lawyers, the lawyers will tell them, plead out, and at least they'll get help. They probably won't be free for quite some time. But there's a lot of mental issues there, and above and beyond anything else they've done, they do at least deserve help with those mental health issues. And they're lucky, because if I heard the girl was in serious condition. If she dies, then it becomes murder, and that's significantly harder to try to plead out from.
I know very little about American law, so I don't know.
If you want to learn more, because I spent about a few hours this week doing so, go to lawcomic.net, where an actual licensed, I think he's a professor now, this lawyer has this, comic guide to American law, and it's fascinating. It really is. I learned a lot of stuff that I was like, I guess that's why that happens. But to wrap up, it's very tragic, and I feel for everyone in this situation, but I mean, with the whole Elliot Ross thing, you could obviously point to this guy is a misogynist. He had these ideas. He came to a community that fostered them.
Elliot Rogers.
Rogers, did I say it wrong? Did I say Roberts?
You said Ross.
Ross, so. I don't know why I said Ross, but yeah, so with Elliot Rogers, you can easily point to, he had these misogynistic beliefs. He came to a community that fostered them, and this is what happened, and people should recognize that. But at the same time, you can't say, oh, well, misogyny didn't cause him to be a douche and kill a whole bunch of people, but a fictional character caused these girls to go out of their minds.
Yeah, I find it entirely... It's understandable in one area, but it's also absolutely reprehensible that people will leap on Slenderman, Doom, Marilyn Manson, whatever, to blame them for someone else's actions, but they will not ever not even consider the possibility that misogyny might drive someone to kill. Mm-hmm. And it's fucked up.
Oh, and there was another shooting in Seattle yesterday, but they got the guy. But I think, one person was injured and 2 people died.
And you know what the NRA like to say? The only thing that can stop a evil, crazy, Slenderman-obsessed girl with a knife is a good, crazy, Slenderman-obsessed girl with a knife. Thankfully, there was one around.
Well, that poor girl's got 19 freedom holes, then.
I fucking hate the NRA.
Pretty much. But it's now time for, again, a feature that we are keeping, One Time at the Store. And if you're just listening to Lesbian Talk for the first time, if you've never heard us before, you should know that I've spent the past 10 years working for a large chain bookstore. I've been it, I've done it, I've seen it all, and this is one of those stories. So this goes back to my second store. And this isn't so much a story as it is the makings of a legend. It sounded kind of like their Legend of Zelda thing. Lesbian story unlocked. So I was working with a friend of mine, and we'll call him Nate because that's his name. And so there was a whole bunch of people in line. So Nate was at the register, and I was working the line. So I'd say, oh, what kind of drink can I get started for you? And they'd be like, oh, I want a triple latte with extra sauce and things and stuff. And so I'd mark up the cup, and I'd, go make the drink, and then Nate would bring them up. So I asked this one gentleman, I said, well, can I get started for you, sir? And he goes, oh, yeah, I want the sandwich, this one right here. I'm like, okay, cool. So sandwiches take a few minutes because we have to do them in the oven. Or in the panini grill, if you so wish. So, other people are in line. The line dies down, and I'm getting this guy's sandwich ready. So by the time he gets up to the counter where Nate is, the sandwich is done, and I put it on the plate, and I said, okay, there you go. And so I figure that next he will go and be rung up by Nate, and he will pay. But that's not what happened. The man took the sandwich on the tray and then went away. And then I said to Nate, did he pay? And Nate was like, no. And we didn't know what to do because it had never occurred to us that somebody would try to steal from the cafe. So I didn't know if we should confront him, so I called the manager. And the manager came over, and he was actually one of the managers I didn't like, and he said, so what happened? And we're like, well, this guy stole a sandwich. He's like, what do you mean he stole a sandwich? He came, back here? I'm like, no, he asked for a sandwich, and we made him one, and he went away. And the manager was like, well, how did this happen? And we're like, well, we never assumed that somebody would not pay. And so he went, and he confronted the guy, and I think the guy had a few problems because he kept saying, oh, my wife is going to pay for me. My wife is going to pay for me. And the manager said, well, is she here? What are you talking about? Well, you said your wife's going to pay. Well, I'm not married. He had some issues. And so one of the customers overheard this whole conversation and said to the manager, I'll pay for this guy's sandwich, don't worry about it. And the manager was like, no, it's the principle of the thing. And so within the next 10 minutes, every manager in the building, and this was a large store, so there were 3 of them now, were grilling us, how could you let this happen? How could you let someone steal a sandwich? We're like, it just never occurred to us that somebody wouldn't pay. And finally, the cafe manager who had been on break got off a break, and he took us back into the area where the freezer was. He's like, look, it's not your fault. You could never have anticipated this. Don't listen to them. Both of you go on break. Just go on break now. I'll handle cafe. It'll be fine. And so we talked about it. We're like, how did this happen? I mean, it was just so flabbergasting. And so we decided that he just, for his chutzpah, for the balls that he possessed to pull something off like that, because he ate the sandwich and then he just left the store. We decided that his name was Sandwich Dealer, and he was worthy of a 70s Shaft-style song. It'd be like, shut your mouth, I was only talking about Sandwich Dealer. Sandwich dealer!
Did he like hang out on just outside the door? Or, like, how did the manager find him?
He sat down in cafe with his tray and ate the sandwich.
And then left?
And then he left the tray, and then he left the store, and he went away.
Where did the manager find him? Like, walking away?
The manager found him sitting there, because the manager came over right away. He was still eating the sandwich.
Ah.
But I think the fact that he clearly had some special needs going on was the reason why we didn't kick him out or call the police. Nate and I just got yelled at. And then we had to, like, write this whole little exercise, like, what in future we could do to help loss prevention in the store. And then Nate said, you shouldn't talk to sandwich dealer. Sandwich dealer.
Well, let's give me an idea. Next time I'm over yours, I am totally going to do that with soup.
No, you're not. I will buy you soup from the cafe. I don't know why you like it that much. It comes frozen in a block, you know. And we either add water or milk, depending on which soup it is, and then it heats up for several hours.
Well, if you freeze it, it'll be like Bakelite. You could, like, totally not have it melt. You could send it to me.
That's disgusting. So moving on to the only other thing we ever talk about in Lesbian Talk.
Doctor Who! This time we're talking about The Sunmakers, which is a Tom Baker one with Leela. And just so you know, for next time, we're going to be talking about Four to Doomsday, which is
so if you want to watch along with the lesbians, you can.
It is going to be it's the second story Peter Davison's era. But what did you think of The Sunmakers?
It was stupid. I like that it was obviously filmed in, like, some municipal factory somewhere.
It's appropriately designed.
It is, it's just, I don't know, I thought it was stupid. The whole entire episode could have been called, Damn It, Canine.
I like The Sunmakers. I thought it was a very amusing and witty script for another one of...
so heavy-handed.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like that in a show.
It was classic Holmes in that he was irritated by something, so he wrote to Doctor Who about it.
I don't think that's professional.
He did not like the amount of taxes they had to pay that year, so he was like, I'm going to write a thing about anti-taxes, but then I'm going to make the government a company so it can be like both libertarian and anti-corporatist.
It was ludicrous. It was so ludicrous. Like, have you paid the death tax? Hey everyone, I think he's talking about estate tax. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
No, that's more of an American thing. This was being 70s. This was like pre-Reagan and everything, pre-Margaret Thatcher. So
I know estate tax is a thing that you guys have. I'm not really sure what it is here.
It's more likely to be just a parody of they're just taxing absolutely everything, whether it makes sense or not, rather than an actually estate tax joke.
Yeah, and I don't like the bad guy at the end. It turns out he was a fungus. Like, he really was, like, from a fungus race.
Yeah.
And I would have liked it better if he was in the same race as Syl that you see in that the 8th Doctor deals with. Or, I'm sorry, the 6th Doctor deals with.
That would have made sense in retrospect, but they hadn't invented the Mentors by then.
Oh, that's too bad.
Because that Vengeance on Varos with Colin Baker was their first appearance.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so... Well, they're Time Lords. They should have thought of something.
But he was, the villain was actually a pastiche of the guy in charge of the UK finances at the time.
Well, it was just so over the top. Like, it was so Ebenezer Scrooge-ish. Like, I was waiting for, a Dickens reference somewhere in there. Although, I do like Leela, because she's hardcore.
Oh, yeah.
Like, a fucking kick your ass and give a shit.
Originally, she was supposed to be, like an Eliza Doolittle from Pygmalion type character.
Mm-hmm.
But then someone along the line decided, that's boring, a Victorian sort of uncouth little, working class girl. That's boring. Let's make a Red Sonja.
She's awesome. She's like, I will kill everyone. And they're like, oh no, if you don't do this, Doctor, then we'll kill the girl. And then she's like, yeah, pretty much you and what army? Let me pull my knife and skin you all. I'm like, yeah, you go for it, girlfriend.
She didn't often get to stab people, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But... Oh, about Doctor Who, this is only tangentially related. Someone who I know, not massively, but I know a bit of, has been cast as one of the leads in Russell T Davies' new show.
Oh, hey, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's Bethany Black.
Is that the show or is that the person you know?
Oh, that's the person. She's a stand-up comic, and it's her first big acting role.
Well, good for you, Bethany. We salute you. And we hope that you have a chance to kill Russell T Davies because Fabian hates him so very much.
Yeah, I used to know her on a Doctor Who forum years ago, and then I was like, I wonder what Bethany's up to. I haven't talked to her in ages, so I Googled her, and I was like, holy crap, she's a stand-up comic. And then I looked up her, and she's really funny.
So you should probably watch her show, everybody, when it comes out.
Yeah, she's a goth, lesbian, trans stand-up comic.
Wow.
And allegedly, she tweeted out, I don't know if she's confirmed this or not, but she thinks she might be the first trans person in the UK who's been cast to play a trans person in a show.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, so good work, Bethany. I would love to get her on the show at some point. She seems really fascinating.
The only problem with all the people that you want to interview is they're in your time zone and not mine.
This is true, but you'll be in my time zone soon.
That's true enough. But yeah, I mean, the special effects were cheesy, but then of course, what do you expect? And
well, yeah.
I like how the Doctor deliberately nearly crashed the TARDIS just to get one over on K9 at the end. I really want to know, why did the Doctor create K9 if he hates him so much?
Oh, he didn't create K9.
Where did K9? I thought he created him.
No, Professor Marius created K9.
Why doesn't the Doctor just shoot him out of an airlock then?
Well, because he has affection for K9.
Yeah, except he spent the whole episode yelling at K9 or using him for his lasers.
Oh yeah, well, the main reason K9 was constantly around was because the kids loved him.
Oh, that's a good point.
Like, the first appearance with K9 was the Invisible Enemy, and the Sunmakers was 2 stories later. So the reason K9 doesn't feature very heavily, I would guess, was because K9 was not originally supposed to become a companion. The kids just really reacted well to him, so they had to add him into the later stories. The Sunmakers being 2 stories later, they didn't edit the script that much.
That's a good point. They also encourage them to kill somebody. Well, they don't really encourage them to. I mean, it's your basic format of the Doctor and crew and TARDIS land, and stuff goes down, and everything's screwed up, and the Doctor makes things unscrewed up, and everybody is happy at the end.
It's very... The
God damn
storyline...
it, fascism.
The storyline is set up very generically for Doctor Who. You've got this really, really surreal, idiosyncratic dictatorship that, you wonder how the hell it even got started. And then the Doctor comes in and then overthrows it in an afternoon.
Yeah, and the title, The Sunmakers, makes no sense until pretty much the last 5 minutes of the last episode. And you're like, Oh, I get it, French class.
With the Sunmakers, at least we get an explanation as to how the crazy state of affairs happened. While the one later on, in the Vesper Coy era, which is quite similar in setup, though not in execution, is the Happiness Patrol.
Was that the one with the guy who has the big head that looks like the Gershall sort?
Yeah, that's that one. It's another crazy...
Nash did a review on it.
Mm-hmm. It's another crazy dystopia where it's illegal to be unhappy. And it was a parody of 1980s sort of, Margaret Thatcher's government.
You guys the idea was fascism, I tell you what.
Well, the idea was that they'd make it illegal to be unhappy, so then anyone who was depressed, they were using that as an allegory for homophobia.
Oh, I see.
So you had really, really bright neon pink, really, really crazy, happy fascists who were picking on depressed people and, treating them like gay people were treated in the 80s in the UK.
Thank God the Doctor came to save the gays. Okay, that didn't happen in real life.
Although I'm pretty sure in Thatcherite Britain they didn't drown people in liquid sugar like they do in Happiness Patrol.
Shh.
Maybe.
That's obviously a reference to McDonald's. No, I'm just kidding. On an unrelated note, I read an article that Cadbury is going to help stem the tides of obesity by having only a certain amount of calories in their chocolate bars. I was like, that's kind of cool. What would the doctor say about that?
Well, it depends on which doctor. I get the feeling that 60 would be against it, while some other doctors would be for it.
Mm. Well, I just thought it was funny where there's this one part where the doctor's in this, torture area, and he strikes up a conversation with this guy who was the chemical engineer, who, pretty much the way it works on this world is they're pumping an anxiety-producing compound into the air, so you're always paranoid and, on edge and stuff like that. That's how you get control.
It's like working for a certain company.
Dun, dun, dun. I have no idea what you mean by that. I'm just going to think you mean something about Margaret Thatcher, panty snatcher.
Oh, it always is.
I know. So, pretty much, he gets a pardon because the main guy wants to see what he's up to. Or, sorry, the main guy's assistant wants to see what he's up to. And so the chemist is like, well, pretty much they're going to kill us. And so they're like, all right, doctor, you get a pass. Someone wants to talk to you. And he's like, what about my friend here? And they're like, no, just you. And he has this really great look on his face, like, oh, so I'm going to leave this guy to die then. Right. So he dashes back at the last minute, and there's this shot of the guy just laying there in this mask there's this helmet that he has to wear. And the doctor just puts the sack of jelly babies next to his head, like, you're going to die, but here, you can have all of my jelly babies. And I was like, well. Jelly babies aren't that good anyway. They're kind of gross, actually.
Well, if you notice in 70s Doctor Who, they never ever actually had Tom Baker eating real jelly babies.
I didn't notice. I didn't take a magnifying glass to the screen.
Well, if you watch like the first episode of Sunmakers, you can see it very particularly that the Doctor is actually eating licorice all sorts.
No.
Yes, because the BBC it is not allowed to advertise. So
he could say the name, but he couldn't be eating the product.
Yeah, so if they say the name, it's just a name. Oh, we weren't talking about, Bassett's jelly babies. We were referring to babies made of jelly.
So I thought that only one company made them. I didn't know it was a generic thing.
Yeah, jelly babies are generic, but they decided that a way around that was to have licorice all sorts and stuff.
I like licorice all sorts. You can get them in the store here.
You poor dear.
I like black licorice. It's a good flavor.
You poor dear.
Would you stop that?
Probably. I'll probably stop at some point. Maybe I'll be dead.
But yeah, all in all, I thought it was I mean, although the one guy who plays the main guy's underling, he just chewed the scenery like no one else's business. He threw himself into that role, and by God, no one was going to stop him.
And he was like, I got a ridiculous helmet, and I got a really badass cape.
My head looks like a penis. I'm going to give it my all. I'm in Doctor Who, damn it.
Pink and black stripey, chevron-covered cape.
Yeah, it was just such a weird episode. And again, it was very obvious that they rented some factory to film in.
And I love it. I don't care what you say. I like it.
Well, I thought it was meh. Plus, the Doctor's teeth disturb me. Tom Baker's teeth are huge. It's like he has a mouthful of chiclets at all times. It's kind of unsettling. I know that the tale is that British have bad teeth, but his teeth are just so large and out there.
In the Five Doctors, there was a bit of a line where when Sarah Jane meets up with the Third Doctor again, and Sarah Jane was trying to explain that the Third Doctor died and he was regenerated, and in the original script you got Sarah Jane explaining that he died and became all teeth and curls. Mm-hmm. But John Pertwee, when filming, decided he liked that line so much, so he would say it. So you had poor Elizabeth Sladen playing Sarah Jane has to mime teeth and curls so convincingly that the Third Doctor could work out what she means just by what she's doing with her hands. And it makes no fucking sense.
Oh. Well, he is all teeth and curls.
Yeah, but
I'm just saying.
But then Tom Baker was all like, yes, but John Pertwee, he was the tall light bulb.
Light bulb?
Yeah, because his bouffant hair looked like a light bulb.
I mean, I guess light bulb, but then wasn't Tom Baker a pretty heavy alcoholic at the time?
Oh, yes.
Maybe it has some kind of meaning for him then.
Tom Baker likes to tell this story about once. I think he was drunk at the time, but he was picked up by a taxi after he stopped being in Doctor Who, about 10 years after he was in Doctor Who. Mm-hmm. And Tom's hair had gone white at this point. The taxi driver recognized him as having played the Doctor. So he had this whole conversation with Tom Baker but the taxi driver thought he was John Pertwee. So the taxi driver at the end was like, well, it's been an honor having you in my taxi, Mr. Pertwee. Whatever happened to that idiot who followed you with a scarf? I didn't like him as the Doctor. And then Tom Baker explained that, well, I hear he got so drunk he died vomiting in a ditch.
That's awesome. That's balls right there. But anyway, so we're coming up to the end of the show. So we're gonna try this. This is our first show of the new format. We'll see how this goes. But it is now time for Giovanni's trivia question.
And if you have any songs that you have a band that's not signed, or whatever you do want a song, send it to us and we'll see about doing it every so often. Yeah.
But make sure we're not going to have any YouTube issues. Otherwise, I will cry and we won't be friends anymore.
Yeah.
Because, YouTube. So anyway, it is time for Giovanni's trivia question. Yeah, boss, here I am. I'm so glad that I didn't get cut from this show, because otherwise I would probably have to sneak up on you one night and sever your spinal cord with my claws. Just saying. That's really lovely. That's a lovely sentiment, and I'm so glad that you admitted that on air. Oh, Bashaw, you know I'd never hurt you. You're my favorite mammal. Okay, mammals listening at home, so here's how this is going to work. I'm going to ask a trivia question. Then, as soon as the episode goes up live, goes up on Blib, and you hear it, if you're the first person to tweet at Omega, as the Omega Geek, on Twitter, if you're the first person to tweet the right answer without using Google, so honor system, you guys, don't do it, then I will give you a special shout-out next episode. First person to tweet the correct answer and swear on your mammal lives that you didn't use Google, okay? Okay? Alright, that's good. So, the question for today is, what does the Q stand for in Q-tip? And what were Q-tips originally called? Now, if you're in the UK and you don't know what a Q-tip is, I think it's what do they call that? Okay. Capiche?
They call that a cotton bud.
Exactly. They call it a cotton bud. So, I guess, really, it doesn't matter for you. But if you know anyway, alright, like the show. So anyway, I will be back at the end of the show next week.
Could the Q stand for cotton?
No, that's stupid. And it doesn't stand for corn either. That veggie kind of substitute is disgusting, really. But so anyway, I will see you all next week.
See, Giovanni, according to Wiki, though, they're called cotton swabs in America.
Well, we know them. I mean, they're technically cotton swabs, but the brand name is Q-tip. It's like how Band-Aids were a brand name, but they just call it a Band-Aid.
Oh, like in the UK, vacuums are called Hoovers.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. Like, that's how it becomes it.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have to deal. So, this has been episode 60, and hopefully we were good with the new format. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully all the various services we uploaded to will enjoy it. But for this week, I have been the Omega Geek, and who do you want to have been this week?
I have been Tom Baker's Curls and Teeth.
I can deal with that, as really frightening as that is. We'll see y'all next week.
I'm coming for you in the night.